Couple of Triple Crown preps coming this weekend, one at Aqueduct, one at Tampa Bay. Both of them will be shown on America's Day at the Races. As you know, the best way to play them and all the races, anytime, anywhere, is through NYRA Bets. If you're not a member of NYRA Bets, head on over. Use the promo code MATCH200, and we will match up to $200 of your initial deposit. Play through NYRA Bets. And once again, America's Day at the Races this Saturday from 2 to 6:30 on FS2. We'll be covering races from all over the country, but particularly we'll be covering a lot of races, a lot of stakes at Tampa Bay, the action from Aqueduct as well. And we'll start out with the Withers at Aqueduct. Both of these races have points for the Kentucky Derby, and the Kentucky Derby trail has sort of started, and it's getting into full swing. And of course, the point races will get bigger and bigger as we progress towards the first Saturday in May. And the Withers, I think the horse to beat in there, well, it depends on how you look at it. I guess the big horse in there is the horse that won our prior stake, the Jerome, and that's Cap O'Kane. And Cap O'Kane easily beat Eagle Roarb that day. And the thing about Cap O'Kane, listen, he took a real step forward, and I thought he was very impressive here, and I don't want to just dismiss him because he was very much with the track. The track was extremely kind to speed that day. I think it made it very difficult for horses to close. So you could argue that that very much helped his performance and hurt the others, and the reality was nobody else ran. Eagle Roarb, I'm surprised that Rudy Rodriguez is pressing towards the Triple Crown with a horse that barely can get beyond 7 furlongs, much less a mile and an eighth. I don't think he's a player, but I do think that Cap O'Kane is a player in this race. Let's face it, he ran well in there, won quite easily. He's improving at the right time. He has speed, but there's other speed in here. Mr. Doda outside of him has speed. And even the 7-horse Donegal Bay with Todd Pletcher we'll talk about have speed. So how quick's the pace going to be and what kind of trips are you going to get? And that brings us to the morning line favorite, and that's the number 5, Risk Taking. Take a look at him breaking his maiden, and he did it, going this 1 mile and an eighth distance at Aqueduct, and he did it quite easily. He was a far different horse than he was in his prior race. He started his career out in the dirt, 6 furlongs. He does no factor whatsoever. He has a real turf pedigree on the dam side. They tried the turf. He was no factor whatsoever. Going back to the dirt where Chad Brown initially ran him, but stretched him out in distance, he was a completely different horse with the blinkers on. He got himself into the race, and frankly, he's a horse that looked like a winner every step of the way. I am not thrilled with subsequent performances by some horses in there, and it does bring that 82 buyer into question. He ran very well. Now, Jose Lezcano on the shelf right now. Eric Cancel picks up the mount on Risk Taking. There's more speed in this race. Is he a horse that wants to be closer? We'll see how effective he is. I do think he's the horse to beat, but there are some reasons to have some questions about a horse at a relatively short price. We know, though, he can handle the distance, and he is, I think, the horse to beat in here. He and Cap O'Kane are clearly the main 2 players. We'll take a look at the first of 2 Todd Pletchers in here, and that's the number 7 Donegal Bay, and we'll show him winning down at Gulfstream Park. He won in a day where I think inside speed was a real advantage. We saw Tax take advantage of this and run very, very well, running a very big figure. Saw a horse for Todd Pletcher, actually, that sort of chased outside in that Tax race, come back with a big win here yesterday at Aqueduct. I think Donegal Bay is dressed up, and can he bring that form up from Florida? We'll see. Listen, you're supposed to respect Todd Pletcher in these races. You're kind of crazy if you don't. He's got such an amazing record in 3-year-old prep races. I'm not a believer in him, and I'm not particularly a believer in Overtook as well, who's got to get a lot faster to win this. And the reality is that he won last time because it was a fast pace, and the race absolutely collapsed. That was a wicked, wicked fast pace when you consider the final time and a half at 46 and 2 and a final time of 140 and 1/5. I'm really dubious of him. His one race, a mile and eighth at Aqueduct, he did very little running. I want to look at a horse, though, from Laurel, and that's the number 2 Royal Number, who was very impressive winning for Mike Trombetta last time. When you see a horse who's running buyers around 60 in his first 4 races, suddenly runs an 81 buyer, you ask yourself what happened. Well, there's always the possibility that he just took a giant step forward. These are improving 3-year-olds. It was also his first time with Lasix, so that's also worth noting. We'll see. You got to have the Lasix off for this race in order to get points for the Derby. You cannot race in Lasix in these races. We'll see if he can run the same kind of race. He had a perfect trip that day. I don't want to ignore that he ran big for a very big trainer. I do think Risk Taking is the horse to beat, but Royal Number and Cap O'Kane will both be on my tickets somewhere, and these races are part of the cross-country Pick 5 as well as we turn our attention to Tampa Bay. Todd Pletcher, unsurprisingly, a big factor in the race at Tampa Bay. Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain making the morning line, because no number, if you saw him at 6-1 morning line and you started salivating, I don't blame you. Stop salivating. He'll struggle to be over 5-2 when he could easily be under that. We'll take a look at Known Agenda breaking his maiden 2 back. And I think one of the reasons he'll be a short price near is this maiden race. At 1 1/8 at Aqueduct. This is 1 16 at Tampa. He beat a horse named Greatest Honor after his impressive win in the Holy Bull last weekend, put himself in the forefront of some people's Kentucky Derby picks. Known Agenda did not run particularly well when he came back in the slop in the Remsen. But the reality is, even in not running particularly well, he still ran an 80 buyer, which probably makes him the horse to beat, especially for horses that have been effective going long. I think Known Agenda is way the horse to beat going in there. I don't want to land on a horse who's likely to be a heavy favorite, but I do think he's much the horse to beat. But there's no doubt that Smiley Sobotka for trainer Dale Romans is a major player off his second-place finish at the Kentucky Jockey Club. Now, a lot of people not named Andy Serling think Keep Me in Mind, who beat him in here, is an actual Triple Crown type contender. I don't think he is, but I actually think Smiley Sobotka may have run the better race of the two. Pace didn't exactly hold together. I know it didn't look that fast, but the others collapsed, finishing over 4 lengths behind and farther back. I don't trust this race overall, but I thought Smiley Sobotka ran fairly well. It's a 2-turn race. He improved in that start, goes out for Dale Roman. He should be forward in here, but it does feel like there are other speeds in this race. Boca Boy, a horse we'll talk about, has speed. Candyman Rocket has speed. There's others with speed. They could be moving up front, and I don't know that that's going to necessarily help Smiley Sobotka, who will probably have to rate. But he did rate at 2 turns at Keeneland 2 back, and he was effective. Can he get fast enough to win this race? Let's take a look at the first of 2 for trainer Bill Mott, and this is the stakes winner Nova Rags, who won a shorter race, the Pasco, at 7 furlongs at Tampa Bay in his last start, and he won it convincingly. Broke his maiden in a tough field, just figuring things out at Belmont Park. Didn't run well in his subsequent start in the Nashua, but he got his act back together when he ran the Pasco. I like this horse, Nova Rags. I think he's a pretty neat horse. He's also one of my favorite horses, a horse named Archie. The problem is he's coming back just 3 weeks after going 7 furlongs, stretching out. I'm a little skeptical that he's ultimately going to turn out to be a router. I think Bill Mott's trying to find out early, because if he's not a router, they cut him back for races like the Bayshore and our lucrative stakes program going short here in New York. I think a lot of people are going to fall for the other Bill Mott runner, and that's Candyman Rocket, and I get it. We'll take a look at his very, very impressive maiden win last time out at Gulfstream Park. There was a heavily favored Chad Brown firster in this race that never lifted a hoof, and after that, it was basically all firsters. I think only one of them had run before. He got a big buyer figure. They're going to stretch him out a month later from 6 furlongs to 1 1/16. Listen, you run that kind of figure, you're a candy ride, it's time to think Triple Crown Trail. No reason not to put him on it. And the reality is he's got the fastest buyer figure of everyone in this race. Having said that, I'm skeptical about this stretch-out move, and I want to see that race get repeated. I think he's a player as a racehorse going further, not a horse I'm going to go for at a relatively short price in this race. What about the speed of Boca Boy, who has never been on a dry track? Now, it's possible there will be some showers tomorrow at Tampa, but let's assume and hope it's a dry track. Hey, maybe he'll be better in a dry track. In his favor, he has improved in every single one of his races last year as a 2-year-old. He's also a horse that's had a reasonable amount of time off, over 4 months, and he could grow up. Does feel like there's a lot of speed in here, but what do you say about a horse that's just been very effective in his races? I don't like Boca Boy. I think he'd have to get a lot faster to win this race, but I'm not going to deny he has some talent. You even got Ricochet, who was a very impressive winner of his maiden race last time out. You've got Runaway Magic, who ran a big figure at 7 furlongs at Churchill before bombing in a tough race at 6 furlongs at Gulfstream. This is a fun race, a lot going on. Hidden Stash on the rail isn't totally impossible. I do think the likely favorite, though, Known Agenda, is the horse to beat over Smiley Sobotka, so I'm kind of chalking it out with my logical choices. But there are a lot of different options in a very fun Sam Davis, part of a terrific day of racing, a lot of which will be covered on America's Day at the Races. And the best way to play all those races and all the races every single day is to play them through NYRA-Bets. Head over to NYRABets.com if you're not a member. Sign up now using promo code MATCH200. We'll match them at $200 of your initial deposit. Play through NYRA-Bets. Keep the money in the game. Support racing and support it in New York. And once again, in New York, America's Day at the Races, weekends throughout the winter before we go to our full-time coverage. FS2 from 2 to 6:30 this Saturday, covering the above-mentioned 2 races and lots of other actions, including a stakes-laden card at Tampa Bay. Have a great weekend. Enjoy.